Make no mistake, polymorphine is the most dangerous thing in the entirety of Noita, making these guys the most lethal enemy. Because no matter how powerful you are, how much HP or how many god wands you have, get turned into a sheep, and all that goes away in an instant. Today I'm going to show you everything I know about how to protect yourself from polymorph, but first I just want to say thank you to my patrons for going that extra mile to help support the channel. If you would like to help in that way, there's a link in the description for my Patreon. If not, all good. Just enjoy the video. Let's go. First, let's get a couple things out of the way. While purifying powder does exist, it's so rare and difficult to create at the time of this recording that it's almost never going to be part of your arsenal. If you do manage to acquire some, yes, you can use it to turn poly into water. Also, you can stack 4 more love perks to keep enemies from attacking. Even if you poly into a sheep, nothing wants anything to do with you. If you shoot the polymorph masters, they will try to hit you, but they shouldn't follow up with another attack. With that out of the way, let's get on with part 1, anti-poly spells. I went through every single spell currently in the game to find the ones that dissolve, cover, or otherwise protect you from liquid polymorphine. Keep in mind, all these spells will have the same effect on all magical liquids, so you can use them on teleportatium, flamuxium, etc. Anyway, the first one is Flamethrower, and it's also one of the most effective. It's fairly common and very safe since it's not destructive enough to cause droplets of dangerous liquids to spatter everywhere, like some of the other spells. Next, normal black hole does not, but Giga Black Hole will completely devour any poly, as well as you, or anything else unlucky enough to get caught in its vicinity. Giant Firebolt is the only one of the 3 Firebolt spells that explodes with enough force to actually dissolve some of the poly. Summon Deerkoi will make a mess, but it too will dissolve poly on explosion. Fireball will dissolve poly, however it's messier and not as efficient as Flamethrower. Meteor, on the other hand, can be extremely messy, but it does destroy poly very quickly. Thunder Charge, while also dangerous, is pretty effective as well. Chunk of Soil can be used, especially with triggers, to help cover up the poly. But this spell really shines later in part 2 of this video. Every one of the Touch Of spells can be used to clear poly. Just be sure to use them with a trigger so you don't end up turning yourself into gold or smoke, etc. Explosion of Brimstone on a trigger was actually surprisingly and extremely effective, if perhaps not quite as safe as Flamethrower. And Explosion of Thunder was not effective. So there you have it. I would say the 2 best spells are Flamethrower or Explosion of Brimstone with a trigger on fast wands with a decent amount of mana. And now for part 2. Poly Safety Eggs. If you've watched any of my streams over the last month or so, you may have seen me experimenting with these. Basically, a Redditor by the name of Redditor's Username discovered that when a player is killed or polyed, they will drop any hollow eggs they have on their person. So several of us have been racking our brains about how best to use this new tech. First, Latali theorized that putting double spell, Circle of Transmogrification, and Circle of Shielding in an egg would protect from both ranged and melee attacks. However, the Polymorph Masters are not affected by Circle of Transmog. So I came up with the idea of adding Projectile Transmutation Field to this for a 3rd level of protection. Since the Polymasters do not have a melee attack and all of their projectiles will turn into innocent creatures inside the safety shields. In fact, all projectiles will turn into innocent creatures, all except for these bubbles. So, while you're pretty safe with this method, you are not safe from the Shape Changer enemy, as the bubbles can still chaotically polymorph you into anything, and the Shape Changer itself has a melee bite attack that it can kill you with, since they are also unaffected by Circle of Transmog. Now, here are a variety of other methods you may use or experiment with depending on time and availability. Hollow Summon Egg with Destruction, or what I like to just call Destruction Eggs, are almost completely perfect. Getting hit by a Polymorph Master or touching Polymorphine will instantly vaporize every living entity on screen without taking any of your max HP. We could almost end this video here and be done with it, except for the fact that these same eggs are also incredibly deadly to the wielder, unfortunately. How? Touching Chaotic Poly or getting hit by a Shape Changer's bubble has only about an 8% chance of turning you into an innocent creature like a sheep. So you have about a 92% chance of turning into a hostile creature and dying instantly. Oh well, nothing's perfect. Nuke Eggs can also be used to kill most surrounding enemies, and they do so very effectively. However, the fire's the least of your worries, because you're almost certainly going to be using these defensively underground, and physics. If you can avoid that though, maybe? Okay, so if Nuke was a bit too strong, how about Holy Bombs with 5 reduced lifetimes so that they explode immediately upon the egg breaking, just like nukes? Alright, so far so good, maybe. Again, you have to deal with being set on fire. Let's try it underground. I don't know what exactly killed me there, but this is probably not the best way. Alright, so I just wanted to address this one. During the course of researching, I've put every single spell and a lot of different combinations of spells inside of hollow eggs, and tentacle eggs have a unique property. With one of these in your inventory, if you die, the game crashes immediately, every single time. Probably not a good thing. Next, Circle of Water eggs could be a pretty effective defense, though you have to make sure you don't drown yourself. But they slow enemies and enemy projectiles, and if you touched Poly Liquid, the water can wash that off, allowing you to turn back to Noita form quickly. Let's try one step further, by adding Circle of Stillness to this for a potential ice shield. Well, it freezes you, but the water might lift you up out of the freeze field, and it does make a circle of ice around you. But if you're too close to an enemy when your egg goes off, you're basically helpless. Just something to consider. That got me to start using black holes with water trails, which seems very effective when touching Poly, as well as decently effective for avoiding enemies. Plus, the black holes will attract enemy projectiles in the vicinity. But then I took it one step further, by making the black holes travel faster and potentially damage enemies. But this didn't seem to be too effective. Also, keep in mind that all of these water-based eggs have a similar problem to the destruction egg. Chaotic Poly might turn you into something damaged by water, and then it's gonna be game over. And now we get to what I consider to be the best design so far. It may not be completely efficient since you need to carry around a bunch of stuff to make these, but just look at that. It's glorious. This method was created by Nymphs, and while I will show the wand, I'm not going to go into specifics about how to make it and what does what, since he made a video on this, and you should go check that out. Anyway, the only downside to this one that I can see is it makes you vulnerable to ghost enemies like the Deathworms and the Delirium Ghost Ticks in Temple of the Art, since they can just go right through the earth. Otherwise, it's pretty awesome, and it protects you from everything else. Long story short, we have options. Pick your favorite or what is available to you, but Hollow Egg is a spell well worth one slot of your inventory. 1.0 is right around the corner, so we'll soon have some new spells to play with. I'm hoping that they don't add an actual polymorph immunity perk, because countering poly through clever use of spells seems way more appropriate, in my opinion. Anyway, thank you for watching, have a great day, and I'll see you next time.